Welcome to Holy Heartbeats. My name is Nathan, and I narrate Christ-centered testimonies from all over the world. These testimonies include rapture and end-times visions, near-death experiences, encounters with angels and demons, God, Jesus, and even Satan himself. Please consider subscribing to my channel if you are fond of listening to these types of stories, and let me know what you think about these testimonies in the comments section below. Furthermore, for those who want to share their personal testimonies, visions, and revelations from God, you can send us your own stories at holyheartbeat7@gmail.com. I will be very honored to read your testimony, which may inspire, edify, and encourage a lot of people in their personal journey of faith with the Lord Jesus Christ.
No man is truly innocent. We all have transgressed in some way in our life. And as I say, I've been impolite, and there are things I regret having done in my life. But nothing like the things I think that you're referring to.
Have you ever physically harmed anyone?
Ever physically harmed anyone? No. No.
The Bundy Bloodline. My understanding and research on this topic are limited, and much more can be done to uncover the darkness working to undermine the Christian faith. Articles like this aim to shed light on those who operate with dual faces, Jekyll and Hyde personas, that harm our society. By recognizing such adversaries, Christians can better navigate the subtle spiritual undercurrents that often lead many astray. In the 1980s, Ted Theodore R. Bundy was one of the most notorious serial killers. The public never fully understood his motivations for murdering so many innocent victims. Ted Bundy reportedly confessed to his girlfriend, Elizabeth Kendall, that the force compelled him to kill. This revelation came during his final arrest in Florida, and Elizabeth documented his confession. Bundy stated, "I don't have a split personality. I don't have blackouts. I remember everything I've done, like Lake Sammamish. We went out to Farrell's for ice cream after eating hamburgers. It wasn't like I had forgotten or couldn't remember. It was just gone. The force wasn't pushing me anymore. I don't understand it. The force would just consume me." Kendall, The Phantom Prince, My Life with Ted Bundy, page 176. Interestingly, the force is a term commonly used by high-level Satanists to describe the power they believe in, a power they think can be harnessed for good or evil. The popular Star Wars franchise surprisingly adopted this term, which had previously been confined to esoteric, satanic, and occult circles. This aligns with a broader plan to normalize occult ideologies, embedding them into public consciousness and goals. Such efforts gradually transform the conspiracy into an open conspiracy, where society itself aids the push toward witchcraft as a global religion and the establishment of a one-world government. Who was Ted Bundy, and why did he commit such heinous acts? Much about him remains unknown, and while the media appeared to cover his crimes extensively, appearances can often be deceiving. If Ted Bundy were connected to the Bundy family of the Illuminati hierarchy, several outcomes could be expected. 1. His satanic activities and any occult links to his murders would likely be suppressed by the police, media, and his family, and 2. Information about his case would be carefully restricted. Curiously, while researching Ted Bundy, it was noted that multiple copies of Ted Bundy, Conversations with a Killer, were stolen from libraries in Portland, Oregon, along with other books on Bundy. Similarly, books on Freemasonry and Satanism frequently go missing, underscoring a trend of censorship or deliberate concealment. Though no concrete evidence ties Ted Bundy to the top-level Bundy family or Illuminati, certain aspects of his life raise suspicions. Bundy, a law student, struggled academically, partly due to the time and energy he devoted to his crimes. However, this didn't impede his political ambitions. Bundy participated in Nelson Rockefeller's 1968 presidential campaign. was appointed assistant chairman of the Washington State Republican Central Committee, and traveled in elite social circles. His political trajectory suggested a promising future had his crimes not derailed it. Moreover, many notorious serial killers have documented connections to Satanism, yet these affiliations are often downplayed or ignored by law enforcement and the media. Examples include Charles Manson, Freemasonry, OTO, and Satanism; David Berkowitz, son of Sam, OTO and Satanism; Jack the Ripper, Freemasonry; and Henry Lee Lucas, Satanism. Could Ted Bundy have had a similar occult connection? While no evidence directly disproves it, his conversion to Mormonism during his killing spree raises questions about his sincerity. Ted Bundy had an interest in astrology, a detail revealed by his longtime girlfriend, Elizabeth Kendall, in her book, The Phantom Prince: My Life with Ted Bundy. Despite being close to Ted, Elizabeth admitted that she could not understand why he brutally murdered so many women. She noted that he had a preference for bondage-related sexual activities, but the inner workings of his mind remained a mystery. Ted had a talent for lying convincingly, often appearing completely honest, a trait reminiscent of the bold deceit practiced by Illuminati members who habitually mislead the public. Ted Bundy was adopted by his stepfather, Johnny Bundy, a dentist in Washington state. The Bundy family, which some speculate may be tied to Ted's lineage, has deep historical roots in America. The Bundys arrived in the New World before 1635, initially settling in Boston, Massachusetts. They later moved to Taunton, Massachusetts, with branches of the family relocating to Connecticut, New York, and North Carolina. Prominent Bundy family members today are believed to have inherited positions of influence through satanic traditions. Although the Bundys were part of America's Eastern establishment, they largely remained out of the public eye until the 20th century, aside from figures like Congressman Solomon Bundy in the early 19th century. Notably, some Bundys have been involved in religious organizations. Two early leaders of the Watchtower Society, Walter H. Bundy and Edwin Bundy, were instrumental in its expansion. Walter accompanied Charles Taze Russell to Great Britain in 1909, while Edwin worked at the Bethel headquarters and traveled across the U.S. for the Society from 1906 to 1910. The following is a list of notable members of the Bundy family who have held influential positions or are associated with the Illuminati. Eric Bundy, allegedly placed in charge of Howard Hughes by the Illuminati's Onassis family. Eugene H. Bundy, a lawyer, judge, and banking executive who chaired the Republican State Central Committee in 1898 and 1900. Frederick McGeorge Bundy, a member of Skull and Bones, chairman of the North Atlantic Phillic Council. Harvey Hollister Bundy, Sr., 1888-1963, a Skull and Bones member involved in the Manhattan Project, chairman of several major trusts and companies, and a trustee for the World Peace Foundation. McGeorge Bundy, a member of Skull and Bones, MJ-12, and the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR. He served as National Security Advisor to Presidents Kennedy and Johnson and was a key figure in the Ford Foundation and Bilderberg Group. William Putnam Bundy, 1917-2000, a Skull and Bones member, CIA operative, editor of Foreign Affairs, and a key figure in the State Department during the Vietnam War. The power of the Bundy family. Although the Bundy family may not be widely recognized as an elite power, their influence in key areas of politics and global strategy is undeniable. During the Kennedy and Johnson administrations, the Bundy brothers, McGeorge and William, occupied critical positions controlling the flow of information to the U.S. president. McGeorge Bundy, as National Security Advisor, determined what Johnson heard following Kennedy's assassination. Both brothers were members of Skull and Bones, a secretive Illuminati-linked society. In addition, Jonas Mills Bundy served as an advisor to Presidents Grant, Garfield, and Arthur during the late 19th century. McGeorge Bundy also held a seat on MJ-12, a secret council allegedly overseeing U.S. affairs. His and William Bundy's roles in the CFR and Bilderberg Group solidify their positions as influential figures in both public and covert power structures. The three most prominent Bundy figures, Harvey Hollister Bundy, Sr., William P. Bundy, and McGeorge Bundy, have shaped history through their political, economic, and military influence. Alongside them, figures like Eric Bundy and Harry W. Bundy, a high-ranking member of the Illuminati, adds to the intrigue surrounding the Bundy family's connections to global power. Harvey Hollister Bundy Sr. came from a family with a strong legal tradition. His grandfather was a lawyer and congressman, and his father was also a lawyer. Following in their footsteps, Harvey became a lawyer himself. However, his career extended far beyond the legal field. In 1909, Harvey joined the Skull and Bones Society. After earning his law degree, he traveled extensively and, in 1914, began working for Justice Wendell Holmes. Years later, Alger Hiss, a member of the Council on Foreign Relations, CFR, and later exposed as a communist spy, also worked for Justice Holmes. Hiss would go on to play a significant role during Franklin D. Roosevelt's presidency. Notably, Harvey's son, William P. Bundy, narrowly avoided having his career derailed due to financial support he provided to Alger Hiss. Harvey had 5 children, 3 of whom were also connected to the Skull and Bones Order. Harvey served as Assistant Secretary of State from July 1931 to March 1933 under Secretary of State Henry Louis Stimson, another Skull and Bones member. Harvey later co-authored a book with Stimson on active service in peace and war, 1940. During World War II, Harvey became Special Assistant to the Secretary of War, frequently traveling abroad. He played a pivotal role as a key Pentagon figure in supervising the Manhattan Project, the U.S. initiative to develop the atomic bomb. He also served as a liaison between the War Department and the Office of Scientific Research and Development. In 1952, Harvey took over the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace from John Foster Dulles. The Carnegie Endowment, often linked to Illuminati activities, had assets exceeding $41 million by 1971 and financed various tax-exempt projects. Its stated mission was to promote international peace, though critics argue that this peace aligned with the New World Order agenda for global governance. Harvey assumed this role after Alger Hiss was convicted of perjury. John Foster Dulles had originally recommended Hiss as his replacement. William P. Bundy, one of Harvey's sons, began his career in 1947 at Covington and Burling, a law firm representing many influential figures in Washington, D.C. The firm has been linked to the creation of left-wing political movements in the U.S., as detailed in Anthony Sutton's America's Secret Establishment, an introduction to the Order of Skull and Bones. In 1951, William left Covington and Burling to work openly for the CIA as an analyst and assistant to the deputy director. His position required him to obtain atomic energy clearance. During this period, Senator Joe McCarthy, known for his anti-communist investigations, sought to expose the New World Order. McCarthy subpoenaed William Bundy, believing his testimony could reveal significant information. The subpoena was partly justified by William's financial contributions of at least $500 to Alger Hiss's legal defense. William Bundy's connections to the Hiss family were notable. Donald Hiss, Alger's brother, worked at Covington and Burling during William's tenure there, while Alger had worked at the same firm as Harvey Bundy. Despite McCarthy's efforts, William avoided testifying. CIA Director Allen Dulles, a member of the Illuminati, intervened to protect Bundy. When McCarthy attempted to have William arrested as he boarded the Queen Mary to leave the country, Dulles successfully convinced the State Department to cancel the arrest. William sailed out of the U.S., avoiding McCarthy's questioning. McCarthy later wrote to Dulles, criticizing his refusal to provide answers, stating that the insistence on secrecy was highly revealing. It might seem surprising that the head of the CIA, an organization dedicated to national security, would protect and obscure the truth about one of its top officers, William P. Bundy, and his financial contributions to Alger Hiss, a convicted traitor. However, this protection reveals deeper connections within powerful circles. McCarthy, a staunch anti-communist, warned of the damage such actions could inflict on American institutions. His concerns about hidden agendas and loyalties were not unfounded. Lou Russell, a key figure in the House Un-American Activities Committee, CHUAC, was unexpectedly tied to the Illuminati power structure. While McCarthy believed some allies were on his side, they were not. The Hiss-Bundy affair played a role in discrediting and ultimately silencing McCarthy, a patriot whose efforts to expose the New World Order, NWO, made him a target. Meanwhile, others, such as Richard Nixon, gained false recognition as anti-communist crusaders. Nixon's image as a hero was carefully crafted by the media, despite his later actions, such as recognizing Communist China, which aligned with NWO goals. By pushing to question a member of one of the top Illuminati families, McCarthy sealed his fate. The Illuminati not only killed him but also tarnished his reputation. Even decades later, during the 1992 presidential campaign, Skull and Bones member George Bush continued to attack McCarthy's character. William P. Bundy later acknowledged the support he received from CIA Director Allen Dulles during the Hiss affair. Bundy remarked on Dulles's tribal loyalty toward a close-knit network of individuals tied to law firms and government positions. This tribe is often associated with the Illuminati. In 1960, William Bundy was appointed as staff director of the Presidential Commission on National Goals while still with the CIA. This commission promoted objectives rooted in Hegelian philosophy. The proposed goals emphasized that individuals should prioritize advancing the will of the state and encouraged citizens to actively contribute to national objectives. This perspective implied a top-down control of societal direction, beyond the democratic processes of voting or market functions. The Illuminati and Hegelian philosophy. The Illuminati employs Hegelian philosophy as a method of control. In simple terms, they create a problem, thesis, introduce a solution that opposes it, antithesis, and then resolve the conflict with a predetermined outcome, synthesis. This strategy allows them to manipulate events and maintain control. For example, the Mafia, an Illuminati creation, would extort businesses by threatening them, the thesis. When the victims resisted, the Mafia would offer protection from the very threats they created, the antithesis. Ultimately, the businessmen would comply and pay for protection, achieving the Illuminati's goal, the synthesis. This method has been employed on a global scale, deceiving countless people. Mafia strongman Sam Giancana, for instance, had connections to prominent figures like President John F. Kennedy, who belonged to one of the top 13 Illuminati families. Giancana's associate, Robert Maheu, worked with both the CIA and the Mafia under the direction of Stavros Niarchos, a Bilderberger and relative of Aristotle Onassis. The Onassis family, another top Illuminati family, is closely linked to the Mafia's operations. Maheu, described as a CIA agent or Illuminati operative, was involved in significant events, including the Kennedy assassination and the kidnapping of billionaire Howard Hughes. In 1957, a faction of the Illuminati, often referred to as the Mafia, abducted Hughes, a brilliant entrepreneur. Maheu and others had infiltrated Hughes's organization long before the kidnapping, further demonstrating the Illuminati's pervasive influence. Illuminati tactics and the Howard Hughes case. The Illuminati's power lies in eliminating competition and maintaining control. Those who challenge the dominance of the top 13 Illuminati families are faced with two options: join them or face destruction. To ensure the stability of their organization, the Illuminati employs intricate strategies, such as deception and manipulation, to maintain secrecy and control. One such case involves Howard Hughes, the billionaire and aviation pioneer. According to insider information, the Illuminati used two lookalikes to impersonate Hughes. The primary imposter was L. Wayne Rector, who rarely appeared in public, and the second was Hollywood actor Brooks Randall. Randall's role as a decoy helped deflect media attention, photographers, and legal intrusions, further protecting the image of Howard Hughes. Robert Maheu, an operative with deep ties to the Illuminati, hired Brooks Randall for this task. Overseeing Maheu's activities was Eric Bundy, who managed the day-to-day operations of Hughes's captivity. Hughes likely died in 1971, though his official death was reported in 1975. The Senate report, number 94, 465, Alleged Assassination Plots Involving Foreign Leaders, dated November 20, 1975, mentions Maheu's involvement in the death of Onassis, another prominent Illuminati figure. Lou Russell, one of Maheu's key associates, had significant ties to the Illuminati and served in multiple roles, including providing security for the Republican National Committee and the Watergate complex. Russell, a member of the Russell family, one of the Illuminati's top 13 families, also played a role in getting Alger Hiss convicted. Yet, the narrative around Hiss has come full circle, with claims emerging in books like Alger Hiss, the true story suggesting he was framed. This revisionist perspective conveniently clears Hiss's name and aligns with the interests of establishment figures, including those tied to William P. Bundy and Donald Hiss. McGeorge Bundy, a life of privilege and influence. McGeorge Bundy, a member of the Skull and Bones Society, consistently received preferential treatment throughout his life, securing positions that many more qualified individuals were denied. Anthony C. Sutton's book on the Skull and Bones Order outlines Bundy's extraordinary rise to power despite his lack of credentials. McGeorge Bundy attended Yale University, where he joined the Skull and Bones in 1940, and later graduated from Harvard. Afterward, he enlisted in the Army as a private. Remarkably, within a year, Bundy was promoted to captain and assigned to staff positions responsible for planning the logistics of critical World War II operations, including the invasions of Sicily and Normandy. This rapid ascent raises questions. As Sutton notes, a 23-year-old with no military experience could not realistically undertake the planning of complex amphibious operations, which require precise calculations to ensure the success and survival of troops. However, McGeorge's father, who held a high-ranking position in the Pentagon, likely facilitated his promotions and assignments. After the war, McGeorge continued to secure influential positions despite lacking qualifications. In 1945, he became an assistant to the Secretary of War and co-authored a book with Henry L. Stimson. Later, he served as a consultant to the Economic Cooperation Administration, despite having no background in economics. He also became a foreign policy advisor to presidential candidate Thomas Dewey. In 1949, McGeorge Bundy was invited to Harvard University as an assistant professor. Remarkably, within just 4 years, he was promoted to Dean of the Faculty of Arts and Sciences. Such a meteoric rise raises questions about merit and favoritism. How does someone with only a few years of teaching experience become the leader of one of the most prestigious university departments? Bundy's trajectory didn't stop there. He later served as the National Security Advisor, holding the role of Special Assistant for National Security Affairs from 1961 to 1966. This position gave him significant influence over the information presented to U.S. presidents. For example, a memorandum recorded a conversation between Bundy, Dean Acheson, a member of the Scroll and Key Society, and President Kennedy. In this discussion, Kennedy was misled into believing the U.S. had abandoned its ally Portugal to support nationalists in Angola. In reality, the U.S. was covertly aiding Marxist guerrillas. In 1966, Bundy became the president of the Ford Foundation, an organization linked to advancing the Illuminati's agenda. He appointed Harold Howe II, a fellow Skull and Bones member, as vice president. Despite lacking qualifications, Howe was a team player who supported the foundation's efforts to promote socialism and Hegelian philosophy. The appointment caused significant discontent, leading both Ford family members on the board to resign in protest. Harry W. Bundy was a prominent figure in Freemasonry, serving as the chief adept, 9 degrees, of the Colorado branch of the Societas Rosicruciana in Civitatibus Foederatis, SRICF. He was also a known Satanist. To understand his role, it's important to explore how Satanism operates through secret societies. The SRICF, like other branches of the Illuminati, uses secrecy and a veneer of respectability to function without public scrutiny. According to Dr. Wynne Westcott, a noted Satanist and leader of the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, SRIA, the organization's purpose is to explore the secrets of nature and study philosophies rooted in the Kabbalah and Hermeticism. Hermes Trismegistus, credited with authoring ancient magical texts, is central to these practices. His teachings are tied to both the Egyptian Book of the Dead and modern satanic rituals. The SRIA has given rise to other occult organizations, including the Golden Dawn, Stella Matutina, and Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO. It has also worked closely with groups like German Illuminism and the Theosophical Society. Each branch, whether in England, Scotland, Canada, or the US, uses regional names, but operates under the same principles. In the US, the SRICF maintains exclusive membership with approximately a dozen lodges, referred to as colleges, and about 40 members per lodge. This suggests an estimated membership of 500 individuals nationwide, each playing a role in advancing the Illuminati's broader agenda. Societas Rosicruciana and its influential members. The Societas Rosicruciana has included several notable figures known for their associations with occult practices and Satanism. Among its members were Al Waite, Eliphas Levi, Kenneth Mackenzie, and the infamous Albert Pike, a Luciferian figure. Within this secretive organization, the structure is divided into regions called provinces, each containing a college, which is essentially a lodge for their activities. On April 20th, 1948, Harry W. Bundy was appointed the chief adept of the Colorado College. This position demonstrated Bundy's deep involvement in the organization. 2 letters from Wynne Westcott, the supreme magus of the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, SRIA, provide direct evidence of its connection to the Illuminati. These letters, which have been photocopied and made available for reference, reveal that the SRIA's leadership was tied to broader Illuminati networks. In 1893, the Massachusetts branch of the SRIA printed a book by Supreme Magus Gould, 9 degrees, which made a bold declaration: the grand central sun of the universe is Alcyone in the Pleiades. This aligns with similar claims made by occultists such as Alice Bailey and C.T. Russell. Such declarations point to a unified set of beliefs across various occult and secret societies. Rosicrucianism and its influence on global chaos. One expert who sought to expose the New World Order and the satanic hierarchy once stated, "It remains for the student to follow every line of inquiry to the point where all threads are gathered and systematically manipulated for the eventual destruction of Christian civilization." This may lead to organizations like B'nai B'rith, the Universal Israelite Alliance, or spiritual centers in India or Tibet. However, a thorough and complete study of Rosicrucianism, especially its branches like the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, will provide significant insights into the political and moral chaos in modern history. This statement underscores the intricate web of influence exerted by secret societies like the SRIA, which trace their connections back to the 13 powerful families, including the Bundys. Several key figures from these elite families have held leadership roles within the SRIA, including Harry W. Bundy.
Because you'll have a monarch butterfly, for instance, that starts out in Ontario, Canada, and it flies thousands of miles down into Central America. And all the knowledge of how to do that, then they take different paths. Not all flocks of butterflies go the same route. But that knowledge will be passed from parent to child. And that was their first real evidence that knowledge can be passed that way. And that was important for the mind control. The elite have been doing this trauma-based total mind control on their own children for about 40 generations. And that's one of the reasons why it worked, was they were passing the ability to dissociate and become a multiple personality from generation to generation. It's really insanity breeding insanity. And so if you understand the bloodlines, you'll understand why we got George Bush Sr. and Jr. as our president. Or you understand why certain people, other people are in positions of power, and you go, I wonder why that's happening, you know. Anyway, how did I get that information? Well, I had done thousands of hours of research into the Illuminati, and I got my big break in 1991 when a friend of mine who knew about my research, he was walking by 4 women, and he heard them say the word Illuminati. We're in the Illuminati. They were Illuminati members. They had been teamed together, and they were trying to get out, and they were a support team helping each other get out of the Illuminati. And so once I met them, now I could understand the Illuminati from the inside. For all this time, I'd been researching, I'd been on the outside looking in, and now I had inside information. There were 2 things that they told me were important. One was the bloodline, and the other one was this total mind control.
The average person who has been spoon-fed what he knows from the controlled establishment, the establishment's news, churches, and schools, is overwhelmed and in denial that mind control can be happening. Who would want to carry out mind control? One category are those groups who use the Kabbalah. Hasidic Judaism, Freemasonry, and witchcraft are all based on the Kabbalah. Llewellyn's magazine, New Worlds of Mind and Spirit, a prominent witchcraft magazine, in their June or July '94 issue state on page 56, the Golem of Prague is perhaps the most famous example of practical Kabbalah, the use of Kabbalah for magical Kabbalah. Golem are mind-controlled beings. There are several Kabbalistic and witchcraft-written references that point out that the creation of mind-controlled zombies, Golem, was the highest goal of the Kabbalah. Albert Pike, perhaps the most important Freemason of all times, clearly stated as the head of Freemasons worldwide that Freemasonry is based on the Kabbalah. A Kabbalistic psychiatrist in Psychoanalysis Review, 44, issue 31, page 180 wrote, "Victory over the world would be secured by any man who possessed the Shem. We shall control the world," words to this effect, "when we shall attain the consciousness of the Shem within us, and will control the power of the Golem to regenerate the world. The golem are energized by the magic tetragrammaton, which the Jehovah's Witnesses emphasize so much. Hypnosis and programming work well in the alpha state of the mind. This is why the child is traumatized even in the womb, so that it will naturally be in that alpha state even before birth. The man in the street may think that the hypnotist looks for weak-willed subjects. However, the mind control programmers and professional stage hypnotists say that a fighter, a determined, forceful personality, are the types they search for to have a successful hypnotic session. Weak-willed persons are usually incapable of seriously concentrating for the successful pursuance of any idea, and usually are the worst subjects. Intelligence is often helpful, and, as stated in the first volume, the ability to be creative is extremely important to the programmers. An extremely important factor for the subject of mind control to have is the emotional drive to pursue to its successful completion a given objective. One reason the programmers like to work with children who were preemies is that they are fighters. Another reason the programmers like to work with intelligent children and not waste time trying to program lower than average intelligent children is that they are easier to hypnotize. This does not mean that only people who appear intelligent are programmed. During the programming process, many of the victims are programmed to appear stupid to others and to themselves. Only the master, and those who work with him, are to use the full potential of the victim. The victim's talents are stolen from them. An intelligent child who comes from an intelligent family and who is programmed with total mind control may grow up into adulthood thinking he or she is of average or below average intelligence. President Theodore Roosevelt, who was blood related to both President Martin Van Buren and to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, is on record. Someday we will realize that the prime duty, the inescapable duty of the good citizens of the right type, is to leave his or her blood behind him in the world, and that we have no business to permit the perpetuation of citizens of the wrong type. The problem cannot be met unless we give full consideration to the immense influence of heredity. I wish very much that the wrong people could be prevented entirely from breeding, and when the evil nature of these people is sufficiently flagrant, this should be done. The emphasis should be laid on getting desirable people to breed. Many of the people within the Illuminati bloodlines have made statements like this, and have done all they could to leave many secret offspring behind, because these elite bloodlines have felt they were chosen to lead humanity. Your ancient aristocratic families such as the Cabots, Lodges, and Delanos have been in favor of placing the blame for society's problems on the bad blood of the common man. They forget all the evils that have been perpetrated on these common people by the blue-blooded aristocratic families that think they are so superior. For instance, Illuminati kingpin Harriman's wife purchased land at Cold Springs, New York to promote a eugenics program. She said that being raised around good racehorses helped her appreciate good breeding in man. Eugenics is the philosophy that some humans are genetically superior to others, and that inferior genetic races or individuals should be destroyed. The first eugenics program started in the United States was by John Humphrey Noyes, the cult leader of communist Oneida communities. John Humphrey Noyes' father was a Vermont congressman, and his mother was a relative of Rutherford B. Hayes, the 19th U.S. president. His family was from the burned-out district, from Putney, Vermont. In 1833, Yale granted him a license to preach. Noyes began creating his communist communities around 1836, and he dictated all their major decisions, including their group sex and eugenics policies. In 1869, John H. Noyes selected 53 women and 38 men to be the only ones in his communities allowed to produce children. The goal was to perfect the genetics of the community by only allowing well-bred children. This is believed to be the first eugenics program. All members of the community were encouraged to have sex with everyone else and not to form emotional attachments around it. However, they were not to have procreative sex. The Oneida group can clearly be tied in with European occult groups that tie in with the Illuminati. The Oneida group used central committees and social control through mutual criticism to keep their members in line. Their social control methods were extremely effective. Years later, Chinese communism began using these innovations of Noyes. Charles Guiteau, who assassinated President Garfield, was a member of Noyes' Oneida community. He became a member because his father, a disciple of Noyes, took him there as a boy. Charles stated that at the Noyes' community, he came under the influence of Noyes, and I was unable to get away from that influence. A man was just as isolated from the world as if he were confined in a state's prison or a lunatic asylum. I suffered greatly in mind and body and spirits during incarceration in that community. He claimed he had never gotten free of the control that began when he entered the Oneida community. In 1880, he began hanging around the Republican Party's NYHQ. This was a very strange thing, because Charles Guiteau had never had any interest in politics his entire life. He bought a pistol from a gentleman, and then shot President Garfield. Knowing that Illuminati mind control was already taking place at this time certainly makes this assassination an area for further study. John Noyes had his groups conducting seances and carrying out initiation rites. He personally sexually initiated the girl children of his communities at these rites. In June 1879, when the authorities came to arrest him for mass rape of little girls, he fled to British Canada, where the British government gave him asylum. After Noyes skipped the country, the community was incorporated as a joint stock corporation called Oneida Limited, which later burned a large amount of the personal records and the diaries of the members to keep their sexual activities forever secret. It's interesting to note that long before 1879, in June 1847, Noyes had treated a woman, Harriet Hall, for tuberculosis and dropsy by holding a seance ritual and sexually sealing the spiritual cure with intercourse with the woman. After the woman's husband reported this, a grand jury indicted Noyes. He skipped bail and an almost sure conviction by fleeing to New York. People have wondered how he managed to practice his odd sexual behaviors for years and never get into trouble with authorities. Margaret Sanger, an early feminist, was also an advocate of eugenics. In their zeal to make her a hero, modern feminists have neglected to notice this side of her. Sanger advocated sterilization of the feeble-minded by the government. This all sounded good at the turn of the century, before legitimate research showed that genetics played only a partial role in how people turned out, and that environment and choices by individuals also played just as big of a role in how people turned out. Many of the people who were sterilized under eugenic laws were realized to have been victims of pseudoscience and hysteria. The Bundy family's hidden power. The Bundy family has played a significant role in American history, often wielding power behind the scenes. Rather than seeking public recognition, they have operated as advisors and influencers to individuals in positions of authority. Their subtle yet impactful involvement has allowed them to remain out of the public eye while shaping significant events. One example of an attempt to expose these hidden networks came from Congressman Carroll Reese. Reese aimed to uncover the connections between individuals like Alger Hiss, the Carnegie Endowment for International Peace, the Morgan Bank, and other tax-exempt foundations. However, his efforts were met with fierce resistance from the Illuminati, which worked tirelessly to suppress his findings. The Societas Rosicruciana and its associated figures demonstrate the pervasive influence of secret societies within global and historical events. The Bundy family's involvement in these networks highlights how power can be consolidated and wielded covertly. Attempts to expose these connections, such as those by Congressman Reese, reveal the lengths to which these organizations will go to maintain their secrecy and protect their agenda. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. Stay safe and I'll see you in our next video.